something I wanted to start with. You know, sometimes safety guys get a bad rap because we try to watch out and keep everybody safe. And but there's two things that's driven safety ever since they started, and one of them is people getting hurt and people dying. And that's the reason we're out here. That's the reason, you know, the equipment's got safety controls on it. We got safety switches, and we got wear hard hats for PPE that he's already discussed. You know, our job is to make sure we have the latest stuff and that y'all are using it and using it correctly. We don't want you using it the wrong way and get hurt trying to use, you know, your safety devices. But we're going to, like I said, going to go over this 3-point rule. It teaches you how to climb and descend off your equipment and ladders and other things. But the main thing, we're out here to keep you guys in a safe working environment, and you know, we want to be on y'all's side and work with you, and that way everybody can go home at the end of the day. You're not going to the hospital or the rehab or something because of an injury or something that could have been avoided by a little bit of training or a repair or something that needed to be made. But anyway, we'll go ahead with the video.
Welcome to the Training Center. Today we're going to talk about entering and exiting large vehicles and maintaining 3 points of contact. Every day all over the country, employees slip while entering and especially when exiting their vehicles. Many of these slips have led to lost time injuries. In fact, more than a quarter of all injuries to equipment operators and truck drivers occur while entering and exiting the vehicle. Upon completion of this lesson, you should be able to identify the most common cause of slip injuries, explain how to enter and exit a large vehicle, and explain why we maintain 3 points of contact. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration sets rules and guidelines for commercial motor vehicles in the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Regulations. In it, they require manufacturers to make provisions for drivers to get into and out of the vehicle safely. They must give you proper handholds and proper steps. The federal government is looking out for you by providing you with safe equipment, but that means that you have to follow the rules by getting in and out of the vehicles properly. The single most common cause of falls from a vehicle is driver error and failure to follow the 3-point rule. The purpose of this lesson is to explain the 3-point rule with a special emphasis on why it is used. The 3-point rule has 3 major parts. First, you always maintain 3 points of contact. This means that you have 2 hands and 1 foot, or, as in the case of this picture, 2 feet and 1 hand in contact with a stable device. Second, you always face the vehicle. Think about when you're walking up and down a ladder. Generally, you face toward the ladder, not away from it. As we will show shortly, this positioning is much more natural for your body and is less likely to cause injury. The third rule is that you should have nothing in your hands. One of the assumptions of the 3-point rule is that you're always using 3 limbs to hold on to your current position, while your 4th limb is moving to the next position. This is impossible to maintain if you're holding something in your hand while trying to climb in and out of the vehicle. Now here's an example of an employee using the proper technique for entering and exiting the vehicle. Notice that as he enters and exits the vehicle, he always maintains contact with either 1 foot and 2 hands or 1 hand and 2 feet. Also notice that he has nothing in his hands to disrupt his handholds. One more thing that you might notice is that the technique for exiting the vehicle looks just like the technique for entering the vehicle played backwards. This is generally how it should look. In fact, if you have trouble figuring out the technique for maintaining 3 points of contact while exiting your vehicle, a good trick is to video record yourself or another employee entering the vehicle and then play the video recording backwards. So now that we know what we mean by the 3-point rule, let's talk about why it works. First, it provides redundancy. If you have only 1 point of contact, you are in an unstable and unsafe position. The person hanging by 1 hand, or in this case, balancing by 1 foot, could fall at any moment. If you have 2 points of contact, you're stable, but you have no redundancy. So if either of your 2 points of contact slip, you'll find yourself in a dangerous and unstable position. But if you maintain 3 points of contact, you are stable and the redundancy of the 3rd point makes you safe. Now we've talked about maintaining 3 points of contact, but why do we have to face the vehicle when entering and exiting the vehicle? The most natural motions for your limbs are shown on the picture on the left. The hips and the arms swing forward, and the knees bend to the rear to allow your feet to be flat on the ground. Now unless you're a contortionist, your arms and legs don't easily bend the way they're shown in the picture on the right. If your movements place you in the awkward position on the right, your chances of getting injured increase dramatically. Now let's look at a similar body position with a small amount of weight applied. Think of the position of a weightlifter performing squats. The form that they maintain is very similar to the picture on the left. The lifter has good posture, his feet are flat on the ground, and several large muscle groups are working together to perform the lift. Now imagine trying to stand with the weight on your shoulders but starting from the position on the right. Most of us wouldn't be able to do it. In fact, if a squatting weightlifter finds him or herself in the position on the right, then something has probably gone horribly wrong. Now that we've seen those, let's look at the body mechanics of a person stepping down from a vehicle. On the picture on the left, you can see more muscle groups working together to supply support. These are large muscle groups too. These are the muscles that normally bear the load when you're climbing upward, so your body's used to it. Now in the picture on the right, only the quad muscles and the front deltoids are supporting the weight. These are small muscle groups. The quads are a large muscle group, and they don't have the support of the glutes in the back of the thigh like you have over here. Further, the arms are in an awkward position behind you, and you're placing an unusual strain on the shoulder joints. So let's look back at the previous slide for a moment. Which of the two positions looks like the proper squat technique from the previous slide? Here's the proper squat technique. Which of these two looks more like it? Clearly the one on the left looks like the proper technique, while the one on the right looks like the improper technique. Now let's look at it from a different perspective. What if your bottom foot slips off while you're stepping down? If you're the person on the left, your top foot will be flat on the upper step, and you'll have several large muscle groups working together to hold you up. As we said before, these are the same muscle groups that you use when you're climbing, so while there'll be additional pressure, it'll be similar to the pressure you've felt before. Now if you're the person on the right, you're going to be in big trouble. Your upper foot is not flat on the step, and in fact it can't go flat against the step in this position. Your quad right here is going to try to take all of that weight, and it's going to place an enormous strain on the front quad muscle and on the knee joint. When it fails to take that weight, you're going to be left with a choice. You can either let go of what you're holding on to with your hands and fall to the ground, or you can have your hands wrenched back and look like this guy. To be clear, stepping down like this is no better than jumping. In addition to facing a violent stop at the bottom, you face several potential strains on the way down. The bottom line is that if you need to catch yourself on a slip, then you want to be in the best position for recovery. You want to be in the position on the left. So now that we've talked about the three-point rule and why it's important, let's look at a few examples. Now in each of these examples, I'll pause the video to let you think about it before moving on. Now do you see anything wrong with what the employee is doing in this picture? Actually, this employee is doing everything properly. He's facing the vehicle, he's maintaining 3 points of contact, and he has nothing in his hands. Do you see anything wrong with what this employee is doing? Now there are several problems here. First and most obvious, the employee is facing outward. Second, the bottom foot is just setting down on the ground, but the left hand isn't holding on to anything. So it's likely that the employee did not have 3 points of contact just prior to touching the ground. Now this is especially important here because if you look down here and you look over here, you'll see there is snow and a wet ground. This increases the likelihood of the steps being wet and also increases the chance of a slip. This employee is very lucky that a slip did not occur given his position and the road conditions. Now, do you see anything wrong here? While it may seem like he's applying proper technique at a glance, we can see that the employee has his coffee cup in his left hand. Rather than grabbing the handhold, he's leaning onto the door. This does not provide any support and would not help him if one of his feet slipped. The best thing to do in this situation is place the coffee cup in the vehicle before stepping in. If the employee is stepping out, he can place it on the floor before exiting and then grab it once he's safely on the ground. Do you see anything wrong here? In this case, the employee is setting himself up for failure. While he has 3 points of contact and has nothing in his hands, he's facing away from the vehicle. The bottom line is that your choice to use the proper technique is made as soon as the door is opened. This is the exact second where the employee has made the decision to perform an unsafe act. Now looking at this picture, we see that the employee appears to be doing everything right. The question is he entering or exiting the vehicle? In reality, there's no way to tell from a still image whether he's entering or exiting the vehicle. If he's using the proper technique, his exit should look exactly like his entrance, played backwards. Now in this lesson we discussed the most common cause of slip injuries, how to enter and exit a large vehicle, and why we maintain 3 points of contact. If you have any questions, please contact the Training Center for further assistance. Thank you for your time and have a safe day.
3 points of contact make sense to you now? You're climbing in and out of your equipment. It says right here in the middle of the page, says no matter what type of access system your vehicle has available, and out here you equipment operators and people, you're on all different kinds of equipment, and they're all made differently. Says always use the 3-point system to significantly reduce the chance of slip or fall. 3-point system means 3 or 4 of your limbs are in contact with the vehicle at all times, 2 hands and 1 foot, 2 feet and 1 hand. It allows a person to maximize stability and support, reducing the likelihood of slipping and falling. You know, be a winner, use a 3-point system. I had a guy in the sign department was getting in and out of his truck. They were closing a road. It had come a rain. Side of the road was a little bit wet, had some mud on his shoes, trying to climb in and out of his truck, slipped and got an injury, and it's off work for about 2 weeks. I mean, just by a little bit of mud. You know, and you guys deal with that every day. You know, there's always something out there to trip or slip you up, and we've got to look out for that and try to avoid it. Going to go over some do's and don'ts. Always wear good shoes. And like it said on the video, exit and enter facing the cab. And you know, it makes sense if you happen to slip, you still got a good handholds, good footholds. If you have one to slip, you've got some other backups to hold you. If you turn around, you're climbing down backwards. You know, some of the equipment we have out here now, I know the buyback front end loaders, buyback road graders, some of the biggest equipment that the state's ever had. And the floorboard on about this high off the ground. It's a pretty good climb to get up to it. And if you climb down forwards facing down and you make one slip, your nose will be in that concrete in about 2 seconds. And there ain't nothing you can do to stop it. And that's pretty serious. You can get injured really bad. And that's kind of what we're, the most important thing I think we can take away from it is practice that and use it every day. If we do and use good safety practices every day, we teach the guys coming on, the younger generation that's coming on, to work safe. And my job and Danny's job will be easy. We won't have to be doing accidents and making sure people get to the hospital, and you'll go all through all the drug tests and all that kind of stuff that you have to do. And most of all, you'll go home safe every day. You know, slow down, use extra caution in bad weather. Get a firm grip on the rails or handles with your hands. Look for obstacles on the ground below before exiting. I started out on the bridge crew about 20 years ago, and I had a guy I was riding with. He stepped out of the truck. We had driven up to dig out a beaver dam. There's a little chunk of wood on the ground about that big around, about that long. It was when he stepped down, it was right under the step. He couldn't see it. He stepped on it, twisted his ankle. About 6 weeks later, I saw him again when he come back to work. He wrenched his ankle pretty bad. It says don't climb down with something in your free hand, and you know that's a bad habit, and I'm as guilty of that as anybody. We gotta that takes away some of your 3 points of contact. Always try to set it down and climb down and reach back up and get it, or you know get somebody to help you move stuff down. As it says, put it on the vehicle floor or reach up for it when you get on the ground. Don't rush to climb out after a long run. I know sometimes we have to ride pretty far to go from one side of the parish to the other, or the district or whatever, and you don't just jump out, always jump out and take off running. Takes a minute to get going and get your balance and everything right. It says don't ever jump out. You may land off balance or on an uneven surface and fall. I had a guy that I worked with back at Chase. He had some repairs done to his lawnmower, and the guy that come to pick it up the other day, he rode the lawnmower up in a trailer and was just stepping out of the trailer and wrenched his knee. He'd been off for several days. I mean, just doing common everyday stuff, you can get hurt. And I mean, he was even at home. So yeah, we have to be careful. Don't use tires or wheel hubs as step service. I know sometimes we're guilty of that on the dump trucks, but we've tried to build ladders along the side of the truck bed so we can climb on that to avoid that. And don't use the door frame or door edge as a handhold. Always look for a good grab handle. And most of all, the last one it says, don't become an injury statistic. We don't want one of you guys to be on one of Danny's slides next year. But anyway, hope that made sense to you. I've got another one we're going to do on the slip, trips, and falls.
In this short video, we will show you something most people don't realize about what causes us to trip and fall and how to avoid this dangerous hazard. Slips, trips, and falls constitute the majority of general industry accidents and result in back injuries, strains and sprains, contusions, and fractures. A trip happens when your foot or lower leg hits an object and stops, but your upper body continues moving, resulting in loss of balance. But first, let's understand one very important thing that we all have in common. Can you tell what it is? When a person takes a step, their foot comes off the ground about half an inch before it steps back down again. Therefore, anything that sticks up a half inch or more can cause you to trip, and then your momentum can cause you to fall. If you're lucky, you'll walk away with a few bumps and bruises, but for the not so lucky, falls result in 15% of all accidental deaths and are second only to motor vehicles as a cause of fatalities. What did you trip over the last time you fell? People tend to trip over things that we see all the time but don't normally notice. Things like a slightly curled up edge of a carpet or mat, extension cords, uneven walking surfaces like cracks in sidewalks or other walking surfaces, thresholds in doorways, tools, even those cute little pets snoozing in doorways cause hundreds of falls every day. Can you spot the trip hazards in this photo? Here's one where the surface changes elevation about an inch, and another change in elevation. Would you see this one? And two more changes in elevation, each more than half an inch. Anywhere you see a crack in a walking surface lurks a potential trip hazard. This is a joint in the sidewalk. Hard to see, but the difference here is almost 3/4 of an inch, more than enough to cause a fall. But can you see the other hazard? Here, almost invisible, but the crack should be enough to warn you. The elevation here changes only slightly, but enough to cause a hazard. We can get so used to hazards we forget they're there. This one was painted yellow, but it's been scuffed over so many times it's getting harder to see. A common type of hazard is any area where one type of walking surface ends and another begins, like where carpeting meets tile, or the edge of a parking lot. Sharp, unexpected changes in elevation are particularly dangerous. This one's much bigger than half an inch. A warning could save a terrible injury or even a life, maybe your own. A simple door threshold sticks up enough to trip anyone walking in or out. Hazards hide in plain sight, especially if the lighting is bad or if we are doing something that blocks our vision. Pay attention. If you're walking and texting, reading, daydreaming, or doing anything other than not paying attention to where your feet are going, you might as well be walking blindfolded because your eyes are not working for you, they're distracted. You can avoid injury because tripping and falling is preventable. Keep in mind that it's the little things we don't normally look for that can hurt us the most. As you're walking today, how many trip hazards can you spot? At work, at home, in the parking lot, or wherever you go. Remember, it only takes half an inch to change your day for the worse. Use your eyes and be aware of those little trip hazards as you walk. Thanks for watching and have a safe day.
Just as Danny spoke of during his training, be aware of your surroundings. Let all that come into play whenever we're out working. There's a lot of stuff out there that can hurt us, and it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much at all. Here in the overview, it says slips and falls occur every day. The extent of injuries and their reoccurrence can be minimized through proper safety, knowledge, and attitudes. You know, and you guys saw in there, you see some of that stuff every day. You're out on the road, and even on sidewalks, even in our buildings or whatever. You got places where carpet and tile meet. There's that little divider there. It doesn't take much. I know the older I get, the more I trip and slip and stumble and everything else. You're out here in the gravel and different things, especially on the roadside, down in the ditch, in a work site. There's a lot of things that can trip us up. We got to slow down, be careful, and make sure we try to keep ourselves and our coworkers safe. It says you can slip and lose your balance. You can trip over objects left in your walkway, or you can simply fall from elevated position above ground. I know here in slips it talks about wet surfaces. I know you guys get out and do, you know, you can get out at night, wet weather, storm come through, blow a tree down the road. You got a lot of variables there that you have to deal with. And the weather can play havoc on us. So slips are most likely to occur when you're in a hurry or run, wear the wrong kind of shoes, or don't pay attention where and when you're walking. To avoid slips, be on the lookout for foreign substances on the floors or on the road, like water, food, grease, oil, sawdust. I know sometimes we have equipment has problems on the road. We have oil spills. Y'all have to go out and put sand on, and you have to work in that stuff, and it's slippery and it's a hazard to you. It says even small quantities are enough to make you fall. When entering a building from outdoors or from debris, clean your footwear thoroughly. And you know, also in snow, we had snow and ice. It's really dangerous when you get out at night or even during the day. You get out and trying to combat the ice and snow on the bridges. Trips occur whenever your foot hits an object and you're moving with enough momentum to be thrown off balance. You know, in the video it talked about a ½ inch, and I mean, there's lots of things that can trip us up. Trash, unused materials, left in aisles and other areas. We need to keep our buildings and places where we work clean, and I try to stress keeping the floorboard of your trucks clean. If you ever get a bottle of Coke or something up under a brake pedal and you need to stop and that truck won't stop, keeping your floorboard clean. You ever have that happen to you? Keeping your floorboard clean becomes real important, because you ain't got time to get down there and get that bottle out from under that thing. So keep your trucks clean. Keep the stuff out from around. It's actually illegal to have anything on the floorboard of your truck rolling around. But like I said, they call it work site hygiene. Keep everything picked up. Extension cords, tools, carts, other items should be removed or properly barricaded off. You know, and report any equipment or supplies that are left in walkways. You know, you see a safety mechanism on something that you're using, or you see something wrong, report it. I mean, it may not be nothing but a cover off of an electrical outlet, but somebody might be working on the other side of the room with a piece of conduit or just, anything, and accidentally touch that and electrocute themselves. So if you see something, I mean, it could be it could be something on a dump truck, anything safety related that might harm somebody. Don't just say, well, I'm not going to say anything about it, I'll let somebody else. I ain't got time for that. You know, always report it and try to have it fixed, because the next fella that comes along may not notice it, and if he gets hurt and all you had to do was say something. Because we've got plenty of manpower and things to fix those deficiencies. Says what were you supposed to? Shortcuts through machine areas invite accidents. Sometimes shortcut can get us a shortcut straight to the emergency room. Concentrate on where you're going. Horseplay and inattention leaves you vulnerable to unsafe conditions. And the last one we're going to cover is falls. Worst falls from elevated positions like ladders or scaffolding. And a ladder is a good handy tool to have, but it'll also, used in an improper manner, it can also hurt us real bad. They result in injuries and deaths. Learn to practice good ladder safety and proper use of scaffolding. I know a lot of the guys on the bridge crews and stuff sometimes use scaffolding building bridges or repairing. It says hold on to the handrails when using stairs or ramps. They are there to protect you if a fall should occur. If you're carrying a heavy load which hampers your ability to properly ascend or descend stairs, use the elevator. And I know that's not always available, but get help. Find you some help. Get somebody to help you move that object down or up or down, wherever direction you're headed. When climbing, use a ladder of proper length that is in good condition. Keep it placed on a firm surface. Don't climb a ladder that's placed on basically don't put it on something that's going to come out from under the ladder and cause your ladder to fall. Don't reach over too far, get off balance. Always have control of your balance when working from a ladder. Never climb a ladder with your hands full. Always carry tools and proper carrying devices. When using a scalpel, be sure it's assembled correctly. Check for defects. Standing and working on planks should be level and clean. Use toe boards to prevent tools from falling on other workers, and work only with people who practice scaffold safety. And I think that you need to work with people. You want to be a co-worker that practices safety. You don't want to work with somebody that's unsafe, because they may get you hurt and not only hurt themselves. But like I said, as a safety officer, and I can speak for myself, I want to be on y'all's side. I want to try to do things to make y'all's working environment safer, because I didn't hire on to come out here and get hurt, and I know y'all didn't either. And if there's something we can do to make it better, y'all let us know. But anybody have any questions or comments on anything? All right, well, that's all.